There are wounds that leave no scar on the skin, only on the soul. And in ancient Greece, where beauty, reason and democracy flourished, there existed punishments so brutal, so intricately cruel, they were designed not merely to end life, but to erase dignity, identity and memory. It begins in 399 BCE, in a quiet Athenian courtyard shadowed by olive trees. A man, shackled at the wrists, kneels beneath a pale morning sky. His eyes, calm yet defiant, rest on the face of a boy, no older than 15, seated on the tribunal steps. The man is Nicandros, once a revered sculptor of the Parthenon's West Frieze, now accused of asebia, impiety, and condemned for sculpting the likeness of a god with a mortal's grieving eyes. Athens, at the time, is in decline, its golden age dimmed by the Peloponnesian War and internal strife. The city, fearful of corruption from within, has begun turning on its own intellectuals and artists. Men like Nicandros, once celebrated, are now expendable examples. But his sentence is not death by blade or poison. He is to be subjected to apotomy glosses, the ritual severing of the tongue, not merely to silence his voice, but to sever the blasphemy from its root. It was believed that such mutilation cleansed the soul through agony and offered the gods a performance of obedience. The boy watching is Damon, Nicandros' only son. He was taken from his mother's home 2 nights prior, dragged from his bed to witness what the state called moral correction. The guards had said, "Let him learn what happens to those who speak falsely of gods." As the executioner approaches with the hooked bronze knife, there is a moment, so brief it would escape all but the most attentive, when Nicandros meets his son's eyes and smiles, not in defiance, not in hope, in forgiveness, as if he knew that one day Damon would carry the truth of what happened, even when the state erased it. The blade enters. The silence that follows is not quiet. It is loud, with the sound of everything Damon does not understand: betrayal, shame, horror, and guilt. Because as Nicandros' body crumples to the dust, Damon is pulled away, not weeping, not screaming, just silent. And something inside him fractures. What the crowd does not know, what Damon himself will not discover for another 14 years, is that his father's sentence was not a punishment for impiety. It was a cover. A tool of vengeance by men in power, hiding something far worse beneath the blood and ceremony. And that hidden truth, it did not die with Nicandros. It lived on, in documents buried beneath the temple of Hephaestus, in the private journals of a magistrate who later vanished without a trace, and in the dreams of a boy who would grow into a man obsessed with the question no one dared to ask: why did they really cut out his tongue? Damon would become many things in the years to come: a scribe, a drunkard, a fugitive, and finally, a conspirator. But before all of that, he would return to the city that murdered his father. And he would learn that ancient Greece, for all its statues and philosophy, had perfected something even more enduring than beauty. The machinery of punishment built not to discipline, but to destroy. And as the first stone in this tale of torment is turned, the image beneath it is far more horrifying than Damon, or we, could ever imagine. Because Nicandros was not the first, and he would not be the last. 14 years pass like a slow bleeding wound, never clotting, never healing. Damon, now a man of 29, walks the streets of Athens like a ghost in his own city. He does not speak of his father. He does not speak much at all. But in the solitude of ink and parchment, Damon has found something more enduring than voice: memory, and a question he has carved into every page he writes. Why? He works as a humble copyist in a modest scriptorium near the base of the Acropolis, where old laws are transcribed and archived. Most scribes are blind to what they record. They are machines, preserving what is told to them, not questioning what is left unsaid. Damon, however, has learned to listen not to the words, but to the silences between them. One evening, while cataloguing tribunal verdicts from the late years of the Peloponnesian War, Damon stumbles upon a case sealed beneath a false date. The defendant's name is smudged, but the charge is unmistakable: asebia. The punishment, not death, not exile. The scroll reads simply, "Nome Pline," a phrase so rare it has fallen from memory. Judgment washed, erasure not only of the body, but of the identity. The date matches his father's sentence. Heart racing, Damon scans the scroll. The content is vague, deliberately so. Yet a second name appears in the margins, hastily scrawled in a different hand. Magistrate Athenian. Damon's fingers tighten. He remembers that name. Athenian had presided over Nicandros' sentencing. He had leaned forward during the tribunal, his fingers steepled, watching not with judgment, but hunger. No one had seen Athenian in over a decade. Stories circulated. He had fled Athens, or been cursed, or worse. But a rumour reaches Damon from a former acolyte at the temple archives. Athenian had been seen, briefly, at a private estate in the hills of Eleusis, just days before his disappearance, a place known for sacred rites, mystery cults, and secrets the state did not dare regulate. Damon knows the risk. To question a verdict of the Areopagus is treason. To seek a vanished magistrate tied to a convicted blasphemer is madness. But obsession does not ask for permission. It devours logic. And Damon is far beyond reason now. He travels by night. Eleusis lies 2 days from Athens by foot. Along the way, he recalls fragments of his father's voice. Not the words, but the rhythm. The way he used to hum while sketching the curve of a shoulder or the sorrow in a goddess's gaze. Nicandros had believed that to make a god weep was not impiety. It was reverence, because only a god who could feel pain could love humanity. And that belief, Damon begins to suspect, is precisely what damned him. At the estate, Damon poses as a wandering apothecary. The grounds are withered, abandoned save for a single caretaker who speaks in riddles and drinks like a man trying to drown memory. Damon bribes him with wine and flattery. And late that night, beneath the flickering light of an oil lamp, the man tells him of a room hidden beneath the estate, a place no servant entered willingly, a room where Athenian once kept his truths. The door is hidden behind a collapsed wine cellar. Damon finds it beneath rotting casks. The wood groans as he forces it open. Inside, the air is thick with mould, silence, and something older, like the breath of the dead. Scrolls lie in piles, half-burned, fragments of clay tablets, a broken statue of Apollo with his eyes gouged out, and a single parchment nailed to the wall with a rusted pin. It is not a legal document. It is a confession. Athenian, tormented by what he calls the trial of the mask, writes of a secret tribunal convened not by law, but by fear. Nicandros had carved, years prior, a statue of Apollo not from marble, but from the skulls of executed Helot slaves, men whose deaths were unlawful, sanctioned by private Athenian elites, and hidden beneath the guise of war casualties. He had discovered this truth unintentionally during a commission in Sparta, and instead of silence, he sculpted it. The god was not crying for humanity, he was crying because of it. The statue vanished before it was ever shown publicly, and Nicandros' tongue was not severed to silence blasphemy, but to protect men whose crimes would have ignited a civil reckoning. Damon's hands tremble as he holds the parchment. His father had died for telling a truth in stone, and now Damon holds the proof. But before he can even fold the paper, he hears the sound. A breath, behind him, slow, intentional. He turns. A figure stands in the doorway, hooded, motionless. Not a soldier, not a servant, someone waiting. And in the figure's left hand, a bronze hook, curved, familiar. The figure does not move. The hook glints faintly in the torchlight, a cruel echo from another life, a life Damon thought he had buried beneath ink and silence. For a heartbeat, he cannot breathe, not out of fear, but from the collapse of all certainty. The shape of the hook is unmistakable. It is the same design described in tribunal records, in whispered stories about ancient punishments reserved for the most sacred forms of correction. This was no coincidence. Whoever this man is, he is not a looter. He is a keeper. Damon takes a step back, the parchment still clutched in his shaking hand. The hooded man speaks. His voice is low, cracked like sun-dried earth. "You should not be here." Damon steadies himself, masking the tremor in his chest. "You were waiting." A pause. "I was hoping I would not need to be." The figure removes his hood. His face is lean, sun-worn, and aged, but behind the deep-set eyes, recognition flares. Damon gasps, not because the man is familiar, but because the resemblance is unmistakable. The cheekbones, the brow, a faded scar above his left eye. Damon has seen that scar before, in a sketch his father drew when Damon was a child. A quick pencil study of an old friend. This man is Thalos, a stonemason who had worked alongside Nicandros on the friezes of the Parthenon, presumed dead since the war, but now alive, hiding, guarding a crypt of secrets. Thalos eyes the parchment in Damon's hand. "You read it?" Damon nods. "He died for telling the truth." Thalos sighs. "He died for forgetting that truth is not always meant to be spoken, especially not in stone." There is no malice in his tone, only sorrow, and beneath it, guilt. They sit in silence. The oil lamp between them flickers, as if resisting the weight of what is unsaid. Finally, Thalos speaks. "He carved that statue in secret, Apollo weeping, built from the skulls of murdered helots. He told me what he'd learned in Sparta, that elite families from Athens were funding unauthorized raids in exchange for timber, gold, even bodies, all outside the sanction of the assembly. If it had come to light, Athens would have torn itself apart." "Why not expose them?" Damon asks, voice raw. "Why not bring it to trial?" Thalos looks away. "Because the courts belonged to them, the generals, the financiers, the priests, and so did the law." Damon's throat burns. So he was silenced. But why the tongue? Why make it so monstrous? Thalos meets his eyes, because fear is more lasting than justice. They wanted others to learn, to feel the warning, not just hear it. Damon stands. Then let them feel something else. Let them feel what it means to be known. He holds up the parchment. "I will publish this. I will speak his name. I will tell everyone what they did." Thalos shakes his head. "They will kill you before the ink dries, or worse, make you disappear so thoroughly that not even your bones will remain." But Damon is no longer afraid. Obsession has become clarity. He does not need to live. He only needs the truth to. He returns to Athens at dawn, disguised once again in the robes of a temple scribe. In the folds of his garments he hides the parchment, and beneath it, a single sketch, his father's original drawing of the weeping Apollo, rendered in charcoal. By midday he reaches the House of Records. A courier, bribed in advance, waits at the side entrance. Damon gives him the package, sealed with wax. "If anything happens to me," Damon says, "deliver this to the archives at Delphi. Say it came from a priest. Use the code phrase, 'The gods have turned their faces.' They will know what to do." The courier nods. Damon watches him vanish into the crowd. He feels no peace, only the tightening coil of inevitability. By dusk, he is back in his modest room. He does not eat. He does not sleep. He waits. And just before midnight, the door creaks open. He expects soldiers. Instead, a boy no older than 16 steps inside. His eyes are wide with panic, his robes marked with the insignia of the High Temple of Athena. "They know," the boy whispers. "They intercepted the courier. He never made it out of the city." Damon stands, fury boiling beneath his ribs. "How do you know this?" The boy looks at him, trembling. "Because I heard them say your name." Damon's heart stops. "And then," the boy whispers, voice breaking, "they handed me a scroll and told me to give it to you." He produces it from beneath his robe. Damon breaks the seal. Inside is a single line. "Your father was only the beginning. Now let us see how many tongues you inherited." And beneath it, a fresh bronze hook. The boy flees into the night before Damon can stop him. His footsteps vanish down the alleyway, swallowed by the dark, like so many truths in this city. Damon remains frozen, the weight of the scroll and the hook pressing into his palm like a brand. The message is clear. This is no longer a warning. It is a summons, a ritual passed from father to son, generation to generation, meant not to end, but to continue. He stares at the hook. It gleams with obscene precision. No rust, no wear. It is not a relic. It is new, forged recently. Someone made it for him. Athens has always been a city of masks. Democracy on the surface, tyranny in the shadows. What Damon now understands is this. The punishment was never about gods. It was a theatre of control, designed to break those who threatened the story Athens needed to tell itself. Stories of glory, reason, law, but behind every golden age is a body count. He does not sleep that night. Instead, he paces the floor, tracing the memory of the parchment he no longer possesses. He knows its contents by heart now. He does not need the document. He is the document. And so he begins to write again. By sunrise, he has composed 5 letters, one to the Delphi archives, one to a former soldier he once helped in secret, a man who owes him more than coin, one to the widow of a helot whose name appeared in the tribunal logs, one to the underground circle of philosophers who opposed the state in hushed salons beneath the city, and one to the boy, wherever he has gone. Each letter contains a piece of the story, a thread, a spark. If they silence him, the fire will still spread. But as he seals the 5th letter, there is a knock at the door. Not the banging of soldiers, not the cautious rap of a messenger, just a single, deliberate knock. He hides the letters beneath the loose stone near the hearth and opens the door. Standing there is a woman, mid-30s, draped in mourning robes, but her eyes, sharp as obsidian, betray nothing of grief. She speaks with calm certainty. You are Nicandrorus' son. It is not a question. Damon nods, wary. I knew your father, she says. I was there the night before his sentencing. He narrows his gaze. You were a priestess? No, she replies. I was the scribe who refused to alter the tribunal records, so they erased me instead. Damon's breath catches. You wrote the name in the margins. Aesion. She smiles, faint and bitter. I hoped someone would see it. I never thought it would be his son. She enters without waiting to be asked. There is no hesitation in her movement, as if she has waited years for this moment. I go by Lysandra now, she says, but they once called me Phaedra, and they wanted me dead because I remembered too well. She places a scroll on the table. The seal is foreign, Spartan. What is this? Proof of the slave raids, she replies. Trade manifests, carvings, names. They smuggled bones out of Sparta to supply Athenian workshops. And when Nicandros found the pattern, he didn't just sculpt the truth, he tried to tell it. Damon opens the scroll. The writing is angular, harsh, Spartan records, not meant for Athenian eyes. How did you get this? He whispers. I married the man who ordered the first raid. He died choking on his own wine. I took what he left behind. Damon looks up at her. Why now? Because you are the last living witness who still believes truth matters. And because they've sent for you. She steps closer, lowering her voice. Tonight, they will take you to the house of supplication. They will offer you clemency if you renounce your father, if you say the sculpture was invented, if you agree that no bones were ever used. And if I refuse, Damon asks. She meets his gaze. Then they will cut out your tongue in the traditional way, slowly, and before they do, they will whisper that they are doing it to protect the city, just like they did to your father. Silence hangs heavy between them. I will not lie, Damon says. She nods. Then you must make them afraid of silence. That night, Damon does not run. He dresses in the robes of a humble citizen and walks through the torchlit streets toward the house of supplication. Once a place of sanctuary, now a mockery of it. Within its marble columns, verdicts are prepared long before trials begin. He is led down a corridor of flickering braziers and into a chamber thick with incense. 3 men await him. One he recognizes, the current high magistrate. Another is cloaked in the insignia of the Temple of Apollo. The third, older, colder, wears no insignia at all. He is the one who speaks first. You have been accused of resurrecting a blasphemy. Damon says nothing. You may yet be spared, the man continues, if you denounce your father and everything he claimed. Still, Damon remains silent. The High Magistrate leans forward. Your father was a craftsman. Do not make the mistake of thinking he was a martyr. Damon raises his eyes and speaks slowly and clearly. He made the gods weep, and now it is your turn. The chamber stills, but then the door behind Damon creaks open again, and this time his mother walks in. She is older than he remembers, and yet unchanged. Her presence strikes like a chisel against stone, sharp, deliberate, precise. She enters the tribunal chamber without escort, her head unbowed. The folds of her black veil trail behind her like a shadow too long silenced. Damon's breath falters. He had not seen her since the night of his father's execution. That night, when she stood stone-faced as he was taken from her, as if she'd accepted the world was ruled by things she could no longer protect him from. But now she stands not as a mother, but as a witness. The High Magistrate rises. His face shifts, not in respect, but calculation. Irene of the Temple of Hestia, we did not summon you. Her voice slices the air with a clarity born of years kept mute. And yet, here I am. The unnamed elder speaks. Your presence is not required. This matter concerns state stability, not domestic grievances. Irene steps forward. Her eyes, so much like Damon's, fix on the three men with a calm that makes their power look brittle. What you fear is not instability, it is memory, and I have not forgotten. Damon's heart races. What are you doing? He whispers. She does not look at him. She speaks to the tribunal. My husband, Nicandros, was no blasphemer. He was loyal to the truth, and when he told me what he had learned, I begged him to stay silent. I knew what the city did to men who spoke too boldly. She produces a small bundle from within her robes. Slowly, she unwraps it. Inside lies a broken shard of sculpted marble. It is a face, just one eye, the edge of a brow, but Damon knows it instantly. It is from the statue, the one no one ever saw. Gasps ripple through the chamber. The elder speaks coldly. That was destroyed, burned. No fragments remain. Irene lifts it higher. You burned what you could find. My husband hid the rest. Her hand trembles, just slightly, and now she looks at Damon. He buried this beneath the olive tree where he taught you to draw. I have kept it for 14 years, waiting for the day it could mean something again. The High Magistrate steps back. Damon's chest tightens. He steps toward her. Why now? Because your silence has become more dangerous than their lies, she says. Because they do not want your truth. They want your submission. And then she does something no one expects. She takes the bronze hook from Damon's hands and lays it at the tribunal's feet. You want another tongue, she says, voice like thunder cracking in a storm. Then take mine. A stunned silence falls. Even the stone walls seem to recoil from her defiance. The elder magistrate recovers first. You mistake this chamber for theatre. No, Irene says, her voice a whisper now. I mistake it for justice. Then she turns to Damon and holds his gaze. Your father died so the gods might remember how to cry. You must live, so the people remember how to listen. The doors burst open behind them. Soldiers enter, 6 of them. Spears drawn. Damon's instincts scream. He shields his mother, heart pounding, but the soldiers do not move toward them. Instead, they part, and through them walks Thalos, blood on his sleeve, smoke in his hair. He tosses a burnt scroll onto the tribunal floor. The House of Records is gone, he says, and the names of the damned are now ash. Panic ripples across the tribunal. You set fire to the state's archive? The priest of Apollo shouts. Thalos smiles grimly. No, I set fire to your legacy. And from behind him, dozens begin to enter. Not soldiers, citizens, former halites, scholars, outcasts. One by one, they fill the chamber, silent, standing in witness, all of them holding fragments, scrolls, sketches, bones, names. Damon steps forward, not in rebellion, but in reckoning. "You built this city on memory," he says, "and now it remembers you." The tribunal men back away, and in that moment, as the torches flare and the crowd presses closer, Damon sees the fear they once reserved for gods. Because the truth was never destroyed, it was only waiting to be spoken again. But just as it seems the darkness is lifting, a scream erupts from the corridor outside. Everyone turns, and into the chamber runs the courier, the boy Damon had trusted. His chest soaked in blood. He collapses at Damon's feet, gasping, choking on words. Damon kneels beside him. The boy grips his arm with what strength remains. He wheezes. "They knew. Before I left. Someone told them." He coughs hard. Then, with blood bubbling from his lips, he whispers one final name. Lysandra. Damon's blood runs cold. Because Lysandra, the woman who had helped him, guided him, handed him the Spartan scroll, had not returned since that night. And suddenly, he realizes. He never asked how she knew so much. The truth has many faces, and some wear more than one. History remembers the heroes. It praises the philosophers, the sculptors, the thinkers. But behind every marble column, behind every golden myth, lie the voices that were silenced, and the truths that were buried with them. Some were erased to preserve power. Others were forgotten by design. But as you have just seen, truth does not die. It waits. It returns, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in fire. If you believe stories like these still matter, subscribe, share, and keep asking the questions history wanted you to forget.